Folks, we might make a start and some of our colleagues will drift in after morning tea, hopefully. Really nice start. Really appreciate Michael's talk. And following on with the theme, then we're now going to have presentations from our students and from the faculty Teaching Excellence Award winners as well. And that's fitting in with the philosophy of what we're trying to do here, as Michael suggested, is sort of share our practice as part of a community of learning. So it's my pleasure to invite our first speaker, Ms. Melita Dielenbauer, who's a student with disability, to make her presentation.
We all ready? Okay, so good morning, everybody. A special thank you to the Vice Chancellor, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, and to all of you ladies and gentlemen who are seated here. As we all know, our theme is there shown on the screen. This will be the outline of my presentation this morning. So we're going to start with just what is inclusive education, types of disability, importance of inclusive education, ICT to achieve inclusive education, services and ICT available here at USB, suggestions for improvement, outcome, and the conclusion. I just wanted to begin with this quote. Diversity is the mix. Inclusion is making the mix work. And that is by Andres Tapia. So I'm sure because we're all academic people here, you would have an idea what that means. I wanted to begin my presentation with what is inclusive education. First of all, it just refers to, it means all students. And all students having access to education, all students meaning students with disabilities or students with any other learning needs. They're able to attend, they are welcomed. So USB or any other tertiary institute or academic institute opens its doors to having students come in and learn. And they have the freedom to select or to choose the course that they want to learn. Now, in a lot of mainstream schools currently, the ones that are mainstream at the moment, students with disability are actually forced into a program that they may not have particularly chosen. For example, a high school here in Suva, even though some of the students, say deaf students, want to take science because of the lack of interpreters or because it's not accessible, they're forced to take arts or they're forced to take other subjects. So they do not have the opportunity to choose for themselves the course that they want. And inclusive education also means that the students, when they come, they are supported to learn. They have the support. So here, we have support services for all students. We have the SLS, the Student Learning Support System for any student. And for students with disability, we have our Disability Resource Center. Inclusive education also enables students with disability to contribute. So contribute in terms of, if we are given an education, we can find employment and even contribute to the economic development. That's sort of the bigger goal. And that way we can be more independent in our lives. That is sort of the big outcome that we want from inclusive education. We are able to participate. Students with disabilities are able to participate. With participation, there's increased interaction with peers. And participate, for example, this is this forum. I'm able to come here because of sign language interpreters provision. And also any other event, we're able to participate in it because it's accessible. And participate not only in the academic part of a university life, but also all aspects. So we have like orientation day, open day, VC forum like this one, social events that we students with disability would like to be a part of. So just for example, being able to take part in orientation, the students learn of the available support services that are there. And I'm sure this is all the same with any other students that's coming in. So just a brief look at the types of disability that we have to deal with. These are just some of the types of disabilities, and students with these types of disabilities exist here in USP. But it's important to note, we don't really have to learn of the different types of disability per se, but it's important to note that people are different. And for example, not all blind people are the same. We are all different. We have our own different learning styles and different ways that we want to be supported. So it's important that we interact with those students, or we ask those questions to those particular students when we come into contact with them and find out how to best support them. There was a famous baseball league player, Jim Abbott. He's a famous baseball player in the US, but he was born with only one hand. Now, I like what he said, and I'd like to quote that. I've learned to do things differently, but the important thing is learning to do things differently, learning to do those things better. And that we are not to focus on our disability, but rather we owe ourselves to focus on our abilities. And that's the only way to succeed. Now, coming down to the importance of inclusive education, and I would like to use myself as an example in this. Now, the only reason I'm here in USP is because it's accessible. Now, if USP was not accessible, I probably would have just finished off, or if there was no inclusive education at all, I'll probably be at home, isolated, not knowing what's happening around me. So development is one of the outcomes of inclusive education. There's more employment opportunities. So I'm currently studying a diploma in early childhood, and my hope is that as I graduate, I have a better opportunity of getting an employment. I have dignity and self-respect. I'm able to fulfill my dreams. Now, just because we are people with disabilities doesn't mean that we do not have dreams. We're the same as everybody else. We're not aliens. You all have dreams. You all have aspirations. So do we. And I dream, one day I hope to get married and settle down. I'm still single, so if anybody's buying, I'm available. Not too available, but yeah. I'm empowered as a result of being educated. Because we students with disabilities, or we people with disabilities, we are susceptible, vulnerable to abuse, to harassment. And so being educated just gives us that extra power to be able to advocate with ourselves or to be aware of what's happening to us. And we know our rights and we're able to fight for it. Awareness is another outcome of having an education. Being aware of what's happening around us, new developments, and so forth. We're actually up to date and we're included. And inclusive education helps achieve an inclusive community. So because the school fosters this environment, eventually it'll leak out into the community. And most of all, staff and students without a disability, they're more aware and more sensitive. And just more experience in dealing with diversity. So how does ICT contribute to achieving inclusive education? I just wanted to state again that it's just one of the tools for development, but a necessary tool for students with disabilities. It enables students with disabilities to enhance understanding. So here, just the simple use of PowerPoint says a lot. It makes learning a lot more easier for us. We have one student here who's taking foundation, and because the lecturer uses PowerPoint presentation, it's easy. Because the student is deaf, they're able to see the technical words that they need to learn. It creates an interest in learning, and because the understanding is enhanced, the student enjoys learning. ICT also helps us access lectures and notes. And these are the ones that are provided online. We're able to access it due to the adaptive, assistive technologies that are available. We're able to do research and complete assignments independently. We're able to communicate with other students, lecturers, and other relevant people. So we're no longer isolated, but now we're being part of the community. And we're being aware of what's happening. Just for instance, I love reading what's happening. I was able to participate in the Genesis program because I found that out on Facebook. No one told me, but I actually discovered that on the student email. So thanks to student email, that makes us aware of what's happening. And because we're included, students feel valued. And because of that, they enjoy going to class and are more confident to interact. But also with ICT, not only are students having access to their learning, persons with disability can also now be employed here as lecturers or even tutors. So currently, what is available here at USP? We have the Disability Resource Center. Now, I just wonder how many of you know where that is? Anyone? I'm sure you all know. I was expecting a room full of people raising their hands. So, the Disability Resource Center is located, okay, let me start from, you have the bookshop, and there's a car park, and then the Westpac, and there's a path going in between the Westpac and that medical center. So it's the building at the back of the Westpac, towards your left, if you're walking towards it. If you're free, please do come down and find out what's at the Disability Resource Center. So the Resource Center was only set up as a result of the endorsement of the inclusive policy. So what does it provide? First of all, a safe learning space for students with disability. We have PCs because it's hard to have access to the ones in the labs, and because there's limited PCs, so we have one set aside especially for students with disability. But also those PCs are loaded with software specific to the need of students with a disability. So it helps them access whatever notes they need or information that they need. It's also used as an exam venue. So it helps students, so the softwares also help students sit for exams because they, yeah. And the staff and personnel there, they advocate for the needs of students with disability. And also other students, we help advocate for each other. Okay, so these are some of the assistive devices that we were talking about. We have the Read and Write 10 Gold for dyslexia. So it's just a brief blurb there on what dyslexia is, and it's installed in all the labs now. It's what I've been told. Now, I didn't even know that that existed. Yeah. Because when I came in, there's so much happening that for us we can easily get lost. But as a result of my research putting together my presentation, I found this out, that there was this tool available that even students who are deaf can use this because we struggle with English. English is our major barrier, reading and writing in a language that we do not use every day. Because we are visual learners, we use sign language, our reading and writing can become very poor. So this particular tool helps edit our work or helps check the grammar for our work. So this is something I know that I'm going to be trying to learn from now on. So this is another assistive device or tool that blind people use. So those 4 points there, those are the functions of that particular Braille Sense notebook. Have any of you seen this particular device, a tool? Some of you, few of you. And then, as was discussed before, we have the JAWS and NVDA. It's a screen reader that helps blind students access whatever information is being displayed. And this is actually very important since you're going to move, if you're moving towards online learning, then it has to be accessible to the blind students. And this one is called the electronic Braille embosser. It actually prints material in Braille so that students who are blind can have a read if they're wanting a print copy. Now, I'm really proud of some initiatives that USP are taking. I found out that they're offering courses. ED 401 is an awareness for the learning needs of students with disability. And also ED 403 that actually teaches assistive technology specific to students with disability. So I think this is for the lecturers. Okay, I've been told 2 minutes, okay. Just some suggestions for improvement. It'd be great if all forms of media to be made accessible, especially audio, for us who are deaf to be transcribed, video captioning. One thing we found that the captioning on YouTube is very inaccurate, so we would like a proper captioning for any videos downloaded from YouTube. And for our DRC space, the numbers are growing, students with disability, because of how accessible USP is now. So of course with growth comes space, so we need a bigger space. So we are hoping that we have JAWS and other tools be installed in all labs so that we are not cocooned to one corner of USP. We've also found that during graduation, it's really hard for us who are deaf to see our interpreters because they're all the way in the front and we're probably all the way at the back. So we've thought that since we're talking about tools, ICT tools, it'd be great to project our interpreter up on a big screen rather than fighting for space up in the front with the VIP people, you know. So just have it conveniently done by projecting the interpreter up on big screen. One of our wish lists is for USP to work with our sponsors or possible sponsors so that we are supported with the purchase of our own laptop or other devices that we will really need for our learning. And of course, in the long term, for DRC to be decentralized to other regions so that students from other Pacific islands can have access to learning. And of course, we're talking about training and professional upgrade, lecturers to take ED 401 and 403. So these are some of the outcomes that we would see. And I don't want to go through it all, but it's all there. Because of time, I'm going to keep going. So conclusion, a nation's culture resides in the hearts and in the souls of its people. That's by Mahatma Gandhi. So USP's culture actually resides in the hearts and souls of the lecturers, teachers, management, and students that belong here to USP. So we can create an inclusive culture right here in USP. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was really very interesting. And just I can announce that we are expanding the Disability Resource Centre quite extensively as well. So that's in response to the demand. Last year we did quite a campaign around the local high schools because we do have quite a lot of facilities here for disabled people, and became evident that local disabled people didn't know that. And so we did a bit of a roadshow and we doubled our numbers, and so it's been really tremendous, and so it's really great to hear that, so thank you very much. So our next speaker is Miss Louisa, excuse me, get my glasses. I'm not totally disabled, but I can't read without my glasses. Tuila, who's the Queen's Young Leaders Award recipient. Louisa.
Thank you. You did not hear this from me, but if you want to know where your students are, they're probably online, not on Moodle, but on Facebook and Twitter. I'm just saying. Right. So, in putting together this presentation, I did a mini online student survey from various programs, levels, and campuses. And the aim was to find out what ICT services works well with students. I'll be mentioning some researchers. At the end of the presentation, you'll find the links to the researchers. Okay, here are the objectives to this presentation. Educators should be in the position to understand students' perspective of ICT services, see what ICT services works well for students, and witness other ICT services that can support and enhance student learning. This is the student's perspective. Educators should be in a position to understand students' perspective of ICT services, see firsthand what ICT services works well for students, and witness other ICT services that can support and enhance our learning. Now, what ICT services works well for students? When conducting the online student survey, I found that students said what works well for them was student mail, change student password, IT help desk, and USB bookshop. These are part of the student kiosk. Interesting, I also found that the acronym ICT, IT, AV equipment, and MIS was some things that students were not familiar with. They did not know or understand the full meaning to these acronyms. Also, students were using these services, but they could not link it to ICT. We were using it quite easily, but we did not know that these were part of ICT umbrella. Also, some of the students, they were not aware that there were ICT services page for students, and that that ICT is important for our learning. Now, one of the things that we also found out from students, that there is a ITS bandwidth policy. Some researchers have argued that Facebook and other social networking sites have educational potential. For Facebook, for instance, it promotes interaction between students and teachers. Here are some of the questions that students are asking. Why not Facebook? Why not Twitter? And particularly if we're going to talk about Moodle, some of the things that students are asking is like, when you compare Moodle, Facebook, and Twitter, there's interaction. There's interaction on Facebook, there's interaction on Twitter, there is interaction on Moodle, but it is not user-friendly, or it is, there's not much interaction, quality interaction with lecturers or students to student. Here's the ITS bandwidth policy. So the question is, why not Facebook? Now, researchers have shown that social networking sites such as Facebook and Twitter have been widely adopted by students in their personal lives. And I say this because I am one of them. I'm someone, wake up in the morning, and one of the first things I do is I check my Facebook. I check Twitter, what are some of the latest things that's happening around the world, or what's happening in our group discussions on Facebook, when is the next tutorial, or what are the discussions on our assignments. These are interactions that students are already engaging themselves in using these tools. Now, why not Twitter? Some of the things that the researchers have showed is that on Twitter, on Facebook and on Twitter, there is collaboration. Students collaborate with each other. And there's also interaction with our lecturers. Already, I'm sure that in the room, we already have lecturers that have gone and have welcomed these spaces for learning. Now, what I did was I've created a group, a testing group on Facebook, and how it works. Here we have on the left side, we have, I've created a group, and we have add members. So those that have the special interest, the same cause, you add members of the students, and your students interact with you on a daily basis. On the second picture, you have the features of a group, using group features on Facebook. So you have a start live video. This gives opportunities for lecturers to come online and to have an online discussion with their students. This gives students an opportunity to also comment and ask questions. You also have, and the advantage of that is students can always go back on those discussions and talk about stuff that they find interesting, or things that they've forgotten about. They could always go back and see what were the discussions on this. Now, create a poll. The create a poll is really interesting because this feature helps lecturers understand what the students, if students have learned something, if they've learned about, say for example, the lecturer is asking, have you understand the topic? It gives opportunities to students to respond instantly and say yes or no, yeah, and from a lecturer's perspective, you get to find out whether they're learning that topic or they've not really understood it. And there's other features such as create a group event, group chat, group album. And on the last picture you see is the information about the group. An example here is UU204 Pacific Worlds. And what we see here is a generic course that uses this platform actively to engage students in learning. We can see that the course coordinator is introducing the topics to the students, and students actively engaging themselves in the discussions on the topics for the following week or the week to come. Here we have groups created by USP students. So There's some technologically aware students that have gone ahead in creating learning spaces to accommodate their learning needs, such as posting questions, sharing research that they find constructive and related to their links. What we see here is students have really taken ahead in using these platforms. Researchers have also found that these social networking sites have been given, students have repurposed these social networking sites, no more just a site where you come and you network, but it's become a learning space for students. And there are many more groups that have been created by students to help in their learning. Now, from a student perspective, this is a positive shift that the students have taken to open doors for the universities to facilitate learning through these mediums. Here are the USP Facebook pages, and some of these pages update students on what's happening around campus. Next question is also why not Twitter? Twitter is another platform for learning. Here, researchers have found that Twitter encourages most students that do not normally participate in discussion face-to-face to go online and to discuss. These students may also help students to come out of the shells in participating in discussions. Some other benefits of using Twitter: course coordinators can tweet about upcoming due dates of assignments, coordinate assignments, connect with the community, live tweets about field trips, ask questions, post supplementary materials, facilitate discussions, and make recommendations. And Twitter is also a place where we can have our outreach to other communities and also the world at large. How students may be monitored. Now, we have the lab opening hours. ICT labs can be timetabled for the use of social networking for courses. And this is just like lecturers placing bookings for satellite tutorials. And I'm sure that many of our course coordinators here also have some other ideas and ways that we can monitor students and also help in the quality of the learning online. So this is really the overview of students' learning. Now, this is how I interpret this. The world is always changing. ICT has the challenge to accommodate these changes. And this challenges the lecturers to do more research on the integration of technology into learning. Thus, for us, producing students that are not only tech-savvy, but also knowledgeable of the units and its links to the world. Now, what we see here is the status of the use of ICT in learning and teaching from a student's perspective. There are disconnects, and the disconnect in the use of ICT services in learning and teaching. And we feel that we need to see and feel the interaction of ICT services during teaching and learning. Now, we know that this is a process, and as students, we are here, we are willing to learn and to also move with the lecturers and ICT services personnel in reaching the future, which is where we are all consistent and working together, the ICT services, academic staff, and the students. Suggestions: USP Orientation Week. Perhaps we could have first-year students to be introduced well on ICT services at USP, maybe through faculty-based wise, and also using of social networking sites in few selected labs, especially for those units that are fully based online. And it's not only limited to fully based online. Most probably course coordinators of other streams would like to use it trial basis to see if it works for them as well. Again, no man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. And then these questions.
Thanks very much, Lisa. I will just mention that we do now have online orientation. It's been started a little bit late last semester, and it'll be fully running the next semester. So we'll now just move to the presentations from the Faculty Excellence Awards, and the first speaker is Dr. Yoko Kanemasawa from the Fale. So, Dr. Yoko.
Good morning. My name is Yoko Kanemasawa, and I'm a sociology lecturer from the School of Social Sciences. And
my name is Alphonse Botu, and I'm a sociology student.
today we're going to do a presentation together because student-lecturer partnership is the key theme of our presentation. When I was asked to address the question, how did I use ICT to enhance learning, I immediately decided to focus on student-lecturer partnership because I believe that is the key to successful online learning. Our presentation title refers to online togetherness, and this is Alphonse's term for what we believe to be the key element in meaningful online learning experience. Now, I'd like to note at the outset that today's presentation, part of it, overlaps with what I presented last year in this forum, which was about the online conversion of my courses. But today we're going to discuss it with greater emphasis on interaction and partnership between students and lecturers. So this is an outline of our presentation. So first we're going to discuss the common perceptions among students and lecturers of online learning, which are not always favorable. And then I'm going to discuss the process of the online conversion of my course, SO200. This is why I try to pursue the possibilities of interactive online learning. I wanted to see whether it was possible to recreate and even perhaps enhance interactive elements in online learning. And then we're going to talk about the initial anxiety that we had when the course was first offered in the new mode. We weren't quite sure whether it was going to work, to be honest. And then we're going to talk about how it actually turned out, how it actually worked, and worked very well. This will be followed by the key part of our presentation, which is online togetherness. And then we're going to close our discussion with some reflections and recommendations. So first, we'd like to acknowledge that a lot of lecturers and students tend to be skeptical towards online learning because they believe online learning is boring and it takes away genuine engagement, interaction, and conversations between students and lecturers. And a lot of people believe that in online learning, just like that picture there, students are forced to study on their own. There's almost this image of students scattered in isolation, all on their own, forced to study on their own at their own computers. And all these boil down to this perception that there is a glaring lack of interaction in online learning. So when I was asked to convert my course SO200, what I wanted to do was to explore what online learning offered in terms of interaction. And for your information, SO200 is a second-year compulsory course in sociology. And the class size is relatively small, but the course content is heavily theoretical. So without interaction, it is really, really difficult to study this course. So what I wanted to do was to recreate the kind of interaction that we had in the classroom in online learning, and perhaps even to enhance it. So that was my goal as I converted my course to the online mode. The process started with brainstorming and discussion with CFL staff. And I like to acknowledge here the wonderful assistance and advice that I received from Alanieta and Viola. They perfectly understood what I wanted to do, and they gave me so many enthusiastic and useful comments and suggestions. So after after a lot of brainstorming and discussion, we designed a number of online activities, which included things like the discussion forum, which is a standard feature in every course. But here we like to focus on the virtual tutorial, where Lodala and regional students are all mixed up, and they are divided into tutorial groups. And each tutorial group is given their own tutorial room, so to speak, online. They're given a virtual space. And in each unit, they do group work and group tasks in this virtual space. And after that, they present their group work to the rest of the class, again in a virtual space, on Moodle. And in every semester, every student plays at least once a leadership role by helping, guiding, and assisting other students. So everybody plays a leadership role at least once. So this is how we try to enhance interaction in this course. The course was first offered in the new mode last year. And I must say it was pretty scary at the beginning. It was quite scary both for me and for my students. As for me, I was far too aware how skeptical a lot of students were towards online learning, so I was like, will they be put off? And then I was afraid of my course becoming dry and impersonal, just sitting there on the web. And I was also afraid of not getting to know my students, which would kill all the fun of teaching for me. So I was really concerned at the beginning, I must say. And it turns out the students were just as anxious as Alphonse can explain.
I can still remember the first day when Dr. Yoko was introducing ISO 200 in our class, and we students seated at the bike and started to wondering what will be happening, because most of us are familiar with face-to-face programs that are offered around our campuses, and we started wondering in the darkness, and lucky things have changed. There are some students who really have light and direct us to the end of the day. All of us enjoy that online course. We also have some of the fears among our students, since most of us are familiar with face-to-face mode. We fear that the internet connection might interrupt our learning, because online courses, most of the time you have to go online, post your forums, make your discussion forums, so that students can get feedback from it. One of the things that our students we fear too, because we fear each other, because I can remember Dr. Yoko said, if you have a Facebook account, treat it as this online course too. So we says, oh, if we can post it like Facebook, we can get negative feedback from others. But lucky things change at the end of the day.
Okay, so we all were sort of anxious at the beginning. So we said at the beginning of the semester, all right, this is new to all of us, so we're going to do it together. We're going to go through it together, and we're going to try and make it work together. So that's what we decided to do at the beginning. All right, we're all not sure, we'll try and make it work. So we started and soon realized that it was actually working, and working very well. I was really surprised how quickly and how actively students were responding to each other, and how extremely creative they were in their posts and activities. And I was also amazed by students always helping each other. That was major. If a student asked a question regarding where to find a particular reading or how to go about a particular task, others would come in immediately, providing tips and assistance and encouragement. So most of the time, I actually didn't have to do much at all, because as students were learning how to go about particular technology or tasks, they were already helping each other, and they were already encouraging each other. And it was particularly nice to see Lodala students assisting and encouraging regional students. And contrary to my fear that I would not get to know my students personally, I did. I got to know them personally and individually, because I was always interacting with them. I was interacting with them all the time, online. One student would make a comment, post a comment, and others would come in and respond to it. And then I would come in and comment on it. In this way, a conversation would develop. So it was a little like conversations that you had on Facebook with your friends. The only difference was we were chatting about theories rather than about celebrities or movies. So Moodle can work a bit like Facebook when people actually share that spirit of togetherness. So in this way, we realized that our course was quickly turning into a collective project, not something that students were forced to do, or not something that I had to do. It was our collective project. It was something that we were doing together, that was something that we took on together. Just to give you a quick look of what the tutorial room looked like. So that he is a student in a leadership role, introducing himself or herself and encouraging others to start with their work. And another person comes in introducing himself or herself and again offering assistance to other students. Now Alphonse can talk about how he experienced the course.
It's really interesting. First, we learn online technology because some of us, this is our first time to do online learning, and it enables our students to know how to upload our discussion forum, know how to reply on the comments, and also we have virtual room there that all of us can go and comment with our groups, and after we have to upload it for the whole students to comment on it. Things have changed and the course become interesting. I mean, I'm honest with that. It's really interesting because we learn at each other. The regional students comment and we reply from Laudala campus, and really interesting to hear some point of view from the other regional students, and we reply on each other and things become changed and online course become interesting. As I said earlier on, it became a virtual classroom for us, not only as Laudala students, but we learn with other students from the regional campuses. We come together as one and we learn and we comment on the topic for that week, and we give comments and reply, and after the end of the day, we have feedback from our lecturers and things are interesting.
So it seems to us that it is really important to have a course design that allows interaction, but more importantly, it is crucial to develop a sense of togetherness. We may not be together physically, but we are together online, having the same interaction, or perhaps even more interaction than we would face to face. And Alphonse can elaborate a bit more on this because this is his concept, online togetherness.
Yes, thank you. I think the online togetherness is very important because, like, when students come together, participate, lecturers coming, we all students participate with our lecturers, things become like we just one, we just togetherness and a way to achieve our grades at the end of the course. Feedback from lecturers is one of the very important things, as I said. The moment when our lecturers give their feedback on time, it's really encourages students to move forward. It's motivates us students to move forward with our topic for the day. We put up a discussion forum, we exchange our discussion forums, and things are interesting when your lecturers is giving you feedback, because we know that when lecturers give us feedback, we all feel that someone is there for us.
So what emerges from our experience is first, good course design is important because that's what allows interaction. And for that, partnership with CFL is crucial. And second, good course design is necessary but not sufficient in itself for meaningful online learning experience. For truly meaningful online learning experience, there must be partnership, and there must be a shared sense of ownership of the course between students and lecturers. And actually, as you would agree, this is nothing new. Student-lecturer partnership is the key to success in all modes of learning, including face-to-face learning. So what we found is that partnership can make a big difference. Partnership can make online learning so much more interesting and so much more exciting than some people might think. So we'd like to close our presentation with some recommendations.
Yes, thank you. I will get the first point. To my good lecturers who will be lecturing online courses, please be creative. Design something that students and lecturers can come together and we enjoy the online course. Please don't be cynical when you're taking up online courses. I just give you one example. If the tea that we have, just a tea break, is not taste sweet, please put some sugar and milk inside. Yeah, so that be creative so that students can happy and you make something different and the online courses, because at the end of the day, we will enjoy it and we can achieve the good grade.
And to lecturers and students, we'd like to encourage them to use Moodle as their virtual classroom. You know, embrace it as a virtual classroom. It's not something that you do on the side. It's not a chore that we have to put up with. It's a space where you meet people, you get to know them, and you work together, you learn from each other. So why don't we embrace what online learning offers in terms of interaction? Because there could be a lot of fun. To be honest, at the end of the semester, I almost didn't want the course to end because I was having so much fun. So Moodle can be just as good as a physical classroom. And to the university, we'd like to make a humble request. We know that the university is already paying a lot of attention to this issue, but it would be wonderful if the internet connectivity issue in the region could be addressed. We at Lodala can enjoy online learning as much as we want to, and it would be nice if the regional students could do the same. In other words, it would be really nice to see some equity in the enjoyment of online learning. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Dr. Yoko and Alphonse. And I think you're wholly consistent with your philosophy behind your teaching of interaction. You emphasise that by having Alphonse here to support you, and that sounds a really, very nice idea. Just one comment on the last comment. I can't help myself. On the last bullet there, just before we go on to the next speaker, that is a subject of considerable attention at the moment. We have a number of initiatives in Area 1. We're working with New Zealand MFAT on a full upgrade of the satellite system, which will make a big difference. But the type of thing that Michael mentioned in his talk around the prisons, not that we're suggesting the regional campuses are prisons at the moment, not yet anyhow, then that is going to be the type of thinking we need to do in order to manage bandwidth and to manage the use of those facilities at the moment, because many countries don't have and are probably not going to get fibre optic cable in the short term, so that's always going to limit us. So it's about being intelligent about what we can do with what resources we have for the foreseeable future. So thanks for that. So now I'd like to invite Dr. Robert Nicole from FBE to make his presentation.
Good morning, everyone. The first thing I want to do is to congratulate the previous speakers for their outstanding presentations, and just fantastic. So as you will see very quickly, I should have probably spoken first because you'll understand it right away, actually. Okay. One of the first things that I do as a lecturer when I meet my students for the first time is to break the ice, say a little bit about myself. And I expect them to do the same thing, so they say a little bit about themselves, especially where they're from. But on top of that, I ask them to say something unusual about them. And I do that because I want them to break out of ordinary introductions, to step outside the box. It's also to give us something to talk about. And perhaps more importantly, it's about making a personal connection with that person. So this morning, I will do that a little bit with you, but unfortunately, I'm not going to ask you to do the same with me. There's not enough time for that, obviously, but let's just see how we go. Oh, by the way, that's the outline. Just 3 things, but they'll take a full 15 minutes. All right, so I begin with myself. I'm a historian, and actually, you know, we often are accused of living in the past, and in fact, some colleagues and friends of mine and many relatives reckon that I live in the past, and that in fact that past is the Jurassic Age, that I'm a dinosaur. And I'm definitely old school in that way. I'm not on Facebook. I've only ever bought one phone, and that was with the money given to me by my in-laws. It takes me about 2 minutes to text something that will only take 20 seconds for my sons to write. Yesterday I received a gift from my lovely wife, and she said, "Oh, here, this is a Bluetooth." And I was like, okay, it's a Bluetooth. I have no idea what a Bluetooth does, right? Now I know a little bit more because she set it up last night. So I think it has to do with, you know, better sound system in the house, which I'm looking forward to. So when something goes wrong, I do get really annoyed. And I do want to do something to the technology. So it may be quite paradoxical that the university has asked me to speak on how to use ICT to improve learning. The reference to the Jurassic Age and dinosaurs is not lost on me, because after all, the Jura, as in Jurassic, is a mountain range that passes through Switzerland, the country of my birth. And traces of dinosaurs have been found in a little village called Courtedoux, which is on the border between Switzerland and France. It's a little sleepy village, as you can see, mostly of country bumpkins, and who, you know, do farming and have been doing farming for maybe the 4 or 5 last 100 years. The thing about the Jura, though, is that it is the nerve center for Switzerland's multi-billion-dollar watchmaking industry. These people, maybe over the last 200 or 300 years, were farmers in the summer, but in the winter, they were watchmakers. They mutated into watchmakers. The Nicole family, they are from, you know, if you just travel about 2 hours down that way, from that picture, that way, we're from a little valley, also in the Jura, and in my family we have some people who did watches. So my great-great-great-great-grandfather, so going 6 generations back from me, was a man was the first cousins with this person here, Adolphe Nicole, who in the early 1840s invented one of the first chronographs. So that's something a little bit unusual about me. And unfortunately, I've inherited none of the aptitude for science and technology. Obviously, I'm not here to talk about dinosaurs and Swiss watches. But what I wanted to do, aside from establishing a connection with you, was to point out that for some of us, there is a tension between our conviction that face-to-face teaching is the best form of, the best environment for learning. That tension between those of us who think that and those of us who are urging us to move to online courses. And of course, the two are not mutually exclusive, but one needs to be treading carefully. So finally, on the first point, I may be old school, but I totally believe in innovation. It keeps me on my toes, and it prevents, I think, complacency. It also encourages me to look forward to renewal, to actually engage in renewal, and that renewal is really important to fuel my enthusiasm. So, sorry, those are the 2 points that I just wanted to make. So, how do I bring this tension together and kind of try to resolve it in my teaching? Well, when I teach, I like students to make a personal connection with what they are learning, as I've just mentioned. And one of the things that I use to do that is simulations. And the first simulation I want to tell you about very briefly is one that I helped to organize at USP over a 7-year period between 1995 and 2002, which was SPEAKALL. Those of you who were there at the time might remember it. It was a multidisciplinary melting pot of students coming together and simulating the Pacific Island Conference of Leaders, or the Forum, if you like to call it that. So they were heads of government, they were ministers, they were senior officials, some of them were journalists, others were consultants, others still were activists or lobbyists, and others were simply organizing the whole thing. And they came together for a week, they listened to papers, they interacted, and at the end they produced a communique. And every SPEAKALL was hosted by a different country. Later, I tried that in Christchurch when I was working for the New Zealand government, and we put together this Pacific Youth Leadership and Transformation simulation of the New Zealand Parliament. There you can see either sides of the real Minister for Pacific Island Affairs, the Prime Minister, and then with the red tie representing the Labour Party, the leader of the opposition. This initiative continues to this day. I was speaking to these two leaders in February, and they told me that they have now $60,000 in their bank account. Well, how do they generate that money? Because now everybody wants to know what young Pacific youth are thinking about all facets of development in New Zealand. And they're the only Pacific group, specifically Pacific group of young leaders that's operating in New Zealand. So they get called up to Auckland, down to Dunedin, a little bit all over, and they get paid for that. So, and then finances, there are things. They're very active on Facebook if you want to check them out. What do I do about simulations at USP? I do a budget simulation, a national budget simulation for a country that you haven't heard because we created it ourselves. It's called Motukele, but it has all the same characteristics as a Pacific Island country. The class is divided into groups, and all of them prepare submissions which they send to the Ministry of Finance or Treasury in Australia. They apply for these funds to to fund projects. So the on-campus students, for them it's an oral presentation. They address the minister in the lecture hall. But for the online students, they can submit their presentations to the Ministry of Finance via YouTube or through PowerPoint. The Ministry of Finance then produce, I should have this, I should be able to click on this, but I'm not sure if it's going to work. Let's just see. It works. Just about. You see what I mean? So here you have an example of a interaction between the members of the Ministry of Agriculture and Natural Resources around this presentation that they need to produce. And so you have the group leader, fantastic group leader from Tonga, Inoke Halafihi, who says, look, you know, have a look at this. This is an example, a sample from last year. This is what they did for the Ministry of Culture. I suggest that we use the same as a model. Then there's interaction. And then my good colleague Haruo Nakagawa intervenes to put them back on track. More interaction. It goes on and on and on. At some point, the leader comes back in. Says, look, this is how we've decided to group everyone. These are your responsibilities. More interaction, it just keeps going. And then he provides a model for what he thinks what is it? The fisheries sector should look like, and then the others follow his lead and they present their own budget submissions. Okay, so let's just see what it looks like. Oh, fantastic. Sometimes I think there's a conspiracy, but today everything's all right. Okay, so this is what it looks like when it comes to the finance minister and his or her team. This is a slightly more visually appealing one. It comes from the Ministry of Tourism and Civil Aviation. And then this one, so once they've submitted they've sent their submissions, the Ministry of Finance come together and presents the budget. It puts together the budget based on all these submissions, and then it goes up online. And then everyone has to respond to the budget. So this is an example of a response from somebody out in Lautoka. A response to the Ministry of the Agriculture and Natural Resources. So in the first instance, he congratulates them, and then he goes, however, and then he presents what he thinks the ministry could have done or should do. And if you have a quick read through the bits that have been underlined, you'll see that this response really shows how this exercise is cross-disciplinary. Many different students from many different backgrounds coming together, learning together, appraising one another's work, contributing to their understanding of the whole problem, developing critical thinking skills, debating, and generating their own knowledge. This is not my own knowledge. I don't know the thing that he mentioned there at the bottom, that idea. I could not teach this in a classroom. This is something that is generated by the students on their own. And I think it's great. Okay. So I'm going to go quickly on to the second example, which is debates. It's a lot of it's the same thing. It's basically people coming together. This one is a debate around political ideologies. Political ideology is really difficult to teach. It's very dry. But there's nothing quite like creating a debating chamber, even if it's online. Because, as you will see, people embrace the ideology that they have to defend. They begin to develop arguments as to why their ideology is really important. So here you have a person that's come in a bit late because of TC Winston. She's been out of electricity. But she says, look, I want to contribute something. Number one, an image. She contributes that image. And then she says, these are two arguments that we could use to promote the ideology of conservatism amongst our, to the rest of the class. And then the group leader comes back and says, "Oh, thank you. Sorry about your problems post Winston. Look, I really appreciate that. Can somebody in the group find a picture about Edmund Burke and other conservatives, theorists, because it'll help make our presentation look better." So asking people to come in and support one another to make the entire outcome better for everyone. And then the debate takes place. They submit all their PowerPoints. These are the ones online. Obviously, the face-to-face is a live debate. And then they come back and there's an online conversation. So the debate continues online. This person is a Fiji-based blended mode student, and she writes, "Oh, thank you for this, interesting points. However," then she presents an alternative position. And then again, she's contributing new knowledge, stuff that she knows that she has acquired from other sources, to enrich the conversation and collective knowledge. So this is the last part of my presentation. I hope I'm still within time. I have 2 minutes. We'll try. I'd like to introduce an issue which I encountered with the technology and with students in the region, which is which is around the accessibility, but also around issues of development such as poverty. We often talk about how reading, proficiency, writing skills, timeliness, etc. are really important. But sometimes we forget that students are maybe not like us. They don't, in certain areas, they don't necessarily have the same access that we do to the internet. They don't necessarily live in their own homes. They don't necessarily have transport to get to the campus, or money to buy credit for internet. I'll just give you 3 examples very quickly. One is a student that I met in Vanuatu. She's a blended mode student. She had moved from the islands to Port Vila. She had to leave early in the morning for a 90-minute walk to campus because she, so those of you who have been to Vila know that, catching a bus is quite expensive. She didn't have lunch. She worked right through until 4:30. At 4:30 she had to leave so that she could get back to her relative's place before dark. Second student, young Solomon Islander, lives in his parents' home about 2 hours out of Honiara. He's the first one to get an education. The parents had to borrow money to buy his laptop. He didn't have it by week 6 when I visited. He also needs to fork out 300 Solomon Island dollars to buy the textbook. He can't come to the REACT sessions because that would mean spending money on transport that he needs to spend on making the repayment for the loan on the laptop that his parents are purchasing. The third example is a female student whose mother is a market vendor in Suva. I'll just take one more minute. She had to take a loan to study at USP. However, she didn't settle down as quickly as was hoped and withdrew. Unfortunately, she withdrew after the deadline specified by USP. She had submitted some work. As a consequence, she was no longer a student at USP, but she had a debt of $2,000 odd. And nothing to show for it. So these are, for me, real issues that confront students in our region. We can debate about how isolated these cases are, but we need to be concerned about them as scholars who are working in an institution of the Global South. These are different concerns to those that might arise in other institutions, and yet the models that we are following are models of institutions that operate in the global north. So in terms of the way we choose which direction to go, let's be mindful of the context in which we live. I think we should be asking ourselves the question, how can ICT benefit? How can it help us redress the imbalances that some of our students, in fact a large minority at best of our students are facing, so that we can truly live up to the wonderful vision that Nelson Mandela has of education, that is the most powerful weapon that can be used to change the world. Thank you to all those who helped me get here, in particular those on whose shoulders I stand, those who taught me, those who influenced me, those who inspired and continue to inspire me, those who support me, those who question and provoke me, those who co-teach with me, and those that I learn with, and of course those who nominated me and gave me this wonderful award. Thank you all.
Thank you, Robert, and I think you'll agree with me that for a dinosaur he did pretty well with his technology. The only suggestion I'd have is around the level playing field. You could have used the Australia All Blacks test match as another example of a non-level playing field, but I'm biased. So I'd now like to ask Dr. Nathan Wales from FSTE to give his presentation.
Okay, thanks everyone. Well, it's a privilege to be here, and especially to be, given this award, knowing how many great teachers there are in the science faculty. I'm from the School of Geography, Earth Science and Environment. Now, I wish I could make this as fun as the last two speakers, but I don't know if it's going to be, but please bear with me. Now, the keynote speaker raised a number of, many possibilities in terms of integrating technology into teaching. And after I reflected on that, I thought it's a little bit overwhelming, actually, thinking about, which path to go down. But at least I know there are many options available to us. Yoko, in her talk, talked about a student-teacher relationship. And I think for my teaching, that is something that is at the core in achieving successful teaching. It's about building a mutual respect and trust. My motivation for teaching, and hopefully for my students, well, for me it comes from my students, and hopefully for some of my students at least, it comes from my teaching. So I'm just going to go through sort of step by step, what it is that I teach, why I do it, and how do I do it, and how have I used ICT technologies in my teaching. So I teach in geospatial sciences. Now, geospatial sciences is very technology heavy, I guess you would say. But I like to try and focus on the qualitative side of geospatial sciences as well. And I teach mostly face-to-face courses from numbers of students ranging from anywhere from 40 per class to around 350 per class. So the courses I teach, I have different strategies in terms of using technology to deal purely with one aspect, and that is the numbers of students. Why do I teach? I have a passion for for the subject, and I have a desire to try and pass that on, as challenging as that can be sometimes. To provide hands-on active learning. So the focus of all of my teaching is active learning, where the students are engaged in the process of learning. And as I said, there is that relationship that's formed. I have a door is always open policy. Of course, it's not always open, but I like to, as much as possible, have that policy with my students. This can be problematic, of course, when there are 350 students. To understand the strengths and weaknesses of my students, only once I understand the strengths and weaknesses of my students can I really target my teaching. And that is particularly the case for struggling students, late arrival students, and the like. Develop meaningful learning activities that meet the individual learning styles. So when I came to USP 3 years ago, I learnt very quickly, and something that I had some awareness of, having worked in education in the Solomon Islands briefly and in Kiribati, that in the Pacific, students have very different backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, educational backgrounds, and it wasn't until I started teaching in that environment that I realised how really extremely different that actually is. And the last point, local context and global perspective. So making sure there is local context in terms of the teaching content that I'm using, but also trying to give a global perspective on the content. So I have a responsibility, and I like to always remind myself of this. Discouraging rote learning. We all know about rote learning and how it's not really a great way to learn or to teach. To be engaging and treat students like adults. Now really, this is the relationship that's formed between myself and my students, and I believe is the way that success can occur in terms of effective teaching. Encouraging feedback and questioning. Prompt response times. So when students are contacting me when they have particular concerns, treating them with the respect and giving them the response they need in rapid time. And encouraging collaboration. I really believe collaborative learning is, especially in the geospatial sciences, in what I teach, is really core to effective learning. So how do I use ICTs in education? As I've mentioned, it's really a foundation of what I teach. ICT forms a significant part of my teaching, both e-learning, I teach flexi schools, and also another example really to demonstrate this is from one of my courses, an online mapping exercise, which I'll briefly talk about a bit later. I think I don't really need to talk too much about what Moodle offers us, but I just wanted to go through some examples of the way I use Moodle in my courses, and hopefully, let's say, in an innovative sense. Before I talk about this, and something I failed to mention at the very beginning, was that in the time that I've been here, I've really worked as a collaborative team with my small team in the geospatial sciences, John Lowry and Nick Rawlings. They've really assisted me a lot as a teacher, and I think we work very effectively together. So a lot of these ideas have sort of born out of that teacher collaboration as well. And also to the rest of my colleagues in the school, and my teaching assistants, and of course mentors who provide a really important role. So I'll just jump to a couple of examples. I know I probably don't have time to cover all of these, even though I've written the slides, but I'll just go through a few of these to demonstrate the way I've utilised some of these tools in Moodle. So audio-visual, so very simple things, uploading lab demonstrations as videos, uploading audio-visual and sometimes just audios from lectures, trying to keep these short, drawing on public domain videos. My current approach is to just have a link to YouTube, for example, but I think I'm slowly learning that this is not ideal, taking it out of the Moodle platform, but there's a couple of ways they use audio-visual technology. Lectures, really the focus in my courses is to bring the lectures into the lab. So giving the students enough time to work on the exercises, but really elaborating on what is occurring in the lab from the lecture material. The constraint with this is that it discourages students from coming to lectures because they know that they'll hear a lot of this in the lab environment. Of course, there are ways to get around this, which I'll talk about a bit later. Audio-visual aids obviously give flexibility to students, and it puts the onus and responsibility on the students to look at this material, which will contribute, to their assessments or to other parts of their learning. And it's just another, alternative tool that will cater to particular individual learning styles. I know from feedback I've received, some of my students, they never look at the audio-visual aids, while others rely on these. So it's really drawing on that different styles of learning. Discussion forums, I think all of us who use Moodle, we use discussion forums, and really what I've found is the most, obviously as a communication aid, but a great thing about the discussion forum is I can get a sense of particular students and the way they engage where they wouldn't otherwise do that outside of an electronic environment, where they're not actually going to be engaging by talking, but you can see they get a lot of stimulation in that kind of engagement, and it develops a lot of students' confidence and really a sense of ownership of what they're in their learning. Student feedback, only recently have I started bringing student feedback surveys into one of my courses. So rather than just relying on the end of semester faculty feedback, trying to, as a process of, as part of the monitoring and evaluation of my courses and improvement, trying to bring that into the course during the semester, and where possible, integrating changes during the semester. So one example, extra tutorial lessons would be much appreciated for students facing difficulty. If I receive this feedback in week 5, I can implement that in week 6. So it's a very effective way to try and improve my course. Online assessment, so quizzes, for example. I learnt this last year from one of my colleagues, John. Really effective way to engage, an effective way to engage students in assessment, and also to make my job easier so that I can, put my time into other ways of either improving my courses or into research or administration, etc. The timing constraints that can be associated, they're associated with quizzes. Really, this teaches students about time management and organisational skills. So it's not just about the content that they're learning, but it's about the process of, managing their time, and about, really that sort of broader aspect of becoming a good student at the end of their program. Uploading assessments, so using Dropbox functions. This is really useful. For example, I can specify the type of feedback to the students, so they're aware of what is expected of them and the marking criteria. So they can study and they can upload their assessments having a good sense of what the expectation is from me, and therefore what the expectation of the course is. Obviously, there's other benefits, such as being able to identify plagiarism through Turnitin, which we're all familiar with, and again, having a timing constraint. So again, this assists the students in terms of management and organisation and time management. And lab class sign up and attendance, I think we all use these. Again, really this is just a good way to record electronically, and for reporting purposes at the end of the semester, it's a very quick and efficient way to be able to bring this information into the reporting process. Use of Moodle groups, so late arrival and at-risk students, without having targeted ICT sort of tools, managing late arrival students and at-risk students and giving them the best opportunity, it's very difficult. And these students are particularly late arrival students, are at a significant disadvantage because they have a lot less time than other students. So by setting up particular groups and being able to use those to then see where it is that certain students are struggling, and also to be able to monitor their performance much faster, and then to be able to address any issues that are arising well before it becomes a problem in week 13, for example, of the semester. And a few other tools, report logs and activity reports, etc. I really utilise very important tools, obviously SMS messaging, and a number of other resources. Links to student support, which is obviously very important and I find extremely useful in all of my courses. Okay, so what I wanted to do now is just sort of move away from that and just talk very briefly about an exercise that I integrated into my first year course beginning in 2014, and have continued to do that for the previous 2 years as well. An online mapping exercise. This is just as an example of how I've integrated technology in a way that student engagement in the content and in the process has been enhanced. So this was a collaboration with Here.com, which is essentially, we'll just say Nokia in Australia. So the exercise really to have students create mapped data, either using smartphone technology or directly online, and identifying whether it be locations or roads or other landscape features from where they come from themselves, from their own geographic environment. And by doing this, the sense of sort of ownership and engagement I find from the students is remarkable, because they're essentially creating a map of their own local environment. So it's not just, identifying, particular features in Fiji, in Suva, for example, but having students really engage in the process with something that is very familiar to them. So it's really bringing that local context into the learning, and it's very interactive and it becomes more personalised. And I found it a very successful tool in my first year course. I also, beginning in 2014, have been involved in teaching a targeted program of flexi schools in the Marshall Islands, and I will be there later this year to teach the last of 4 geospatial science courses. And in that program, it's both online, in a sense it's blended, it's face-to-face, using video conferencing, etc., really drawing on multiple technologies and multiple forms of engagement from students in order to teach that course. So just that second point, so I incorporate my own research activity into the teaching. So when I'm in the Marshall Islands, I have the students doing data collection and engaging in the exercise from my own research activity. And I use a variety of tools, ICT tools, to deliver this. So Moodle, video conferencing, Skype calls, short training videos on how to use field equipment, and online tutorial activities. So it's really drawing on a number of different tools. Okay, I just noted that my time's up, so just a couple of more slides. A couple of planned future activities I'm interested in incorporating into my courses. Open educational resources. I've only really become aware of this last year, and really the opportunities for incorporating these and adapting to varied needs of distant learning students in particular. And obviously, this will potentially reduce the time needed for me to prepare up-to-date learning materials by drawing on materials that are being developed elsewhere. The risk, of course, is that it's not really a localized content, and this, really need to be aware of that. MOOCs, so integrating MOOCs, one of my colleagues, Nick Rawlings, he's already began looking at using MOOCs in his courses, and I think this is a really good way to engage my students into sort of global happenings in my area of teaching. Okay, so how has broadly ICT influenced my learning? So to empower students through increased sense of ownership and responsibility, as I talked about. Creating independent learners due to separation. Now, this is one area where I think, we have to be very careful with integrating or overuse of technology in teaching by creating a separation from between the teacher and the student. Now, there is a risk of this happening with too much technology or with sort of inappropriate implementation of technology in learning. Encouraging innovation and lateral thinking. So I know for a number of my students already, by making a lot more of the content online driven, students, they're thinking more laterally in a sense. And it's also encouraging my students, as well as me, to become more innovative. Students become good data managers, and this is very important in my field. It's a very difficult concept to pass on sometimes, but I think I'm already seeing that difference by integrating technology. Obviously, automating tasks frees up my time, and it's well suited to particular students who may be disadvantaged, distant students, working students, etc., who can't come to regular classes. Challenges. So that first point really is the main point I wanted to touch on here. So I won't list through these. So increased use of ICTs in teaching coupled with a large and overwhelming institution can be isolating. Now I've seen this already, in my 3 years teaching at USP, I see that isolation, I see that, students who are away from home, students who are not from Fiji, or from Suva in particular, there is often a sense of isolation, and increasing use of technologies may in fact increase this sense of isolation for those students. So really just to make the point that it's careful consideration is needed in the process of incorporating ICT into teaching. But obviously, there's so much opportunity in the process of doing that. And I think I'll leave it at that because I'm probably a few minutes over time now. Questions?
Thank you very much, Nathan. So we will probably just move on now, given the time. Just one thing I can say, you mentioned about OER, then just yesterday at the senior management team meeting, the SMT approved a proposal by me to roll out OER across the university, looking at e-books and at OER generally, for the reasons that were mentioned here and also earlier about cost of textbooks and so on as well. And we will have a team working on it, so we'll come talking to you, Nathan, if you're keen on that, and anyone else who is as well, of course. So what I'd just like to do now is just ask our keynote, Michael, to come back, and he's just going to give us some thoughts and ideas and suggestions, and then at the end of that I'll do a bit of a wrap up, and then we'll have lunch. So, Michael.
Thanks, Colin. Well, I think we saw some pretty impressive examples of practice there. So you're on the right track. Very much so. I think there was a common theme though. Can anybody tell me what the common theme was across most of those presentations? Bit louder. Come on, don't be scared. It's about community and creating engagement. So all the examples were about people communicating and using technology to engage. I look at our first speaker, Melita, about the inclusive education is for all students, and regardless of their ability, not disability, because she encouraged us to not focus on the disability, but actually to focus more on the ability of the students. And a wonderful, wonderful example of that, so thank you. It's not rocket science either. I mean, many of the things we do are available in the tools we have at our disposal already. It's just we haven't really experimented with them. And I suppose I come back to my point. If we're going to do those things, we actually just need to think about doing them consistently, so that we, not sameness, but consistently, so that when students are experiencing these things, they experience them in a consistent way. So, Louisa, particularly with the use of Facebook. We use Facebook quite a bit at our university, but the way we use it is in relation to bringing it back in. So we use LTI, the Learning Technology Interoperability. So lecturers will use Facebook. They might set up learning communities in Facebook. What we encourage them not to do, though, is to put core teaching information in Facebook. We use it as a social medium to engage and get students who are comfortable using that medium to do that. So I would encourage you to look at how you could use Facebook in groups and things like that, but in doing so, how you bring that information back in. So one of the tricks we've done for many years, particularly in things like journaling and things like that we've done, we get students to do little activities, but then real world activities. So go out and do something and then do a short posting about that. Now that doesn't matter if that posting's in Facebook, it doesn't matter whether the posting's in the discussion forum. And at the end of semester, we then ask them to summarise their postings. And that becomes an assessment item. So if they look at all the Facebook posts that they've done over the semester, they might look at all the discussion forums that they've done. But the assessment item is not that the fact that they're doing it, but the fact that they're summarising and processing that information again. So they might have processed the information once when putting those posts up, but get them then to do a final summary, rounding it off, so they're actually reprocessing that information, thereby learning. There are some people who can't use Facebook or don't want to use Facebook because of learning disabilities, because of religious reasons. There are things posted on Facebook that some people find offensive. And so we've got to be careful with that as well, so we don't make it mandatory to use Facebook or any other social media network for that matter. I mean, why use Facebook? Why use Twitter? Why use Snapchat? Why use Scoop.it? Why use Instagram? Why use Pinterest? Why use LinkedIn? The list could go on, and will go on, and will go on. So chalk was a technology at one point. It replaced slate. Facebook will be replaced at some point in our learning scenarios by something else. It's just a part of the evolution of learning. Yoko, great example of collaboration again. So again, a different type of collaboration around partnerships and togetherness. Thank you for that example and for the student for sharing your experience as well. So it's not about, they talked about anxiety and scariness and things like that. These things are a bit scary. Use Facebook or something like that in my teaching, I am going to be a little bit scared of what the students think about it. But you know, no innovation has ever happened by us holding back. We have to progress these things. We have to start trying these things, and it does take a little bit of time to actually come to terms with how we use them. And it's part of growing up, isn't it? I mean, walking across a plank, across a lake or something, you know, across some water, you know, you're a bit scared going across, but when you get to the other side, you've actually realised you've reached your destination and achieved. Robert, I loved the way he started off by personalising his experience, and I just felt closer to him because of that. Mate. You don't have to be, I mean, you can be a Luddite in technology and still get through, eh? It's great. I mean, the personalisation that it causes, I mean, it's all done in the online space, isn't it? I mean, that's the interesting thing. It used to actually all happen in the tutorial room. Now it's happening in the online space. So there's no difference really. It's just a matter of how we're using the technologies to actually enhance our learning like that. So e-learning is a tool. It's just a tool, just like chalk's a tool. And it's just a matter of how we are using those tools to help us engage with our students. It's just another tool. It will be replaced. LMSs won't live forever. I can guarantee they will not live forever. Chalk didn't survive either. And so it's about the cross-disciplinary learning that you touched on cross-disciplinary learning. Now that is really important going forwards, particularly if we can conceive a way in which law students can work with nursing students, or sociology students can work with psychologists, working on common problems. So they're actually, and that's what they'll do when they get out in the workforce. They'll start working with these people in the workforce. So how can we exemplify that right now in our courses by having some common assessment items across courses. So these different students are working together to solve common problems. So I wish you all the best with that, and I would like to see how that goes. Robert, that's great. Finally, with Nathan, again, the words I wrote down were relationships, personalised learning, real-world learning. I mean, that's really where it's at for our students, particularly in the online space, how they can personalise the learning journey to where they're going to be as professionals going forward. So it's no wonder these people got their awards for teaching in this place. So thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. Again, with Nathan, the use of the audio-visual aids for flexibility, to create flexibility, really, really important as we move forward. That's that's one of the ways in which we make learning in the online space sustainable. We create something that will, a learning resource, multimedia resource or whatever, that will last, if we make it general enough, not too specific, if we make it general, it will last 4, 5, 6, 7 years quite happily. And that makes education more sustainable, more adaptable in terms of the way we can use those going forward. So wonderful. Turn it in. Anyway, I wish you all the best with it. I think that's all I really want to say. What we saw in there, I don't want to stand between you and lunch. I mean, you're saying about an academic standing between him and coffee, but I don't think I can stand between a Fijian and their lunch either. So thank you, everybody. I really loved the collaboration we've had, and I've caught up with quite a few people, and looking forward to doing more collaboration over the next while. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael, and following off that theme, I don't want to stand between you and lunch either. I was saying between an academic and the coffee urn was what I think is the most risky space. I'd just like to emphasise a couple of things Michael said and sort of link a few things together. He talked earlier on about one of the issues universities face is around competition. And USP has traditionally not had much competition, but you can see the rise of national universities around the region. I think some of that's because they have a different agenda to us, but nonetheless they are likely at some point to become competition. And USP's always sort of prided itself as being a premier provider in the South Pacific, and I think that's a challenge to us to be true to that. If we do claim that, how can we do that? And I think innovation technology, flexible learning, higher quality learning, using the technologies to enable learning rather than simply to roll them out because they look good because you have some tablet as opposed to you're actually doing something useful with that. And I think we can see that right through there as well. Michael talked about consistency, and that is the challenge for us with that devolved model of the faculties where a lot of decisions are made the faculties, and I don't have a problem with that, but it does inevitably bring with it diversity, and sometimes that's good because it's tailored and that's the rationale, but we do need to think about that notion of equivalency and consistency that he mentioned as well. And I particularly appreciate the comment he made that that online learning, for example, is not necessarily cheaper, certainly if it's a quality product, then you can sort of do cheap by dumping PDF files, as you said, on Moodle and thinking that's achieved it. So it really is about using the analytics, it is about quality. So I'd just like to wrap up by thanking Michael for travelling over here, a very, very busy schedule he has, and giving such an interesting keynote, and also to bring it together at the end, the comments you made there. I'd very much like to thank our technical people for all the work they've done around it. And this is a complex technical environment, so I appreciate the technical people from ITS and other staff who have done a lot of work in that area. I'd like to thank our sign and language interpreters who do a wonderful job as always, and we appreciate that. And I'd like to give special thanks to Karen Gibson and Yvonne Anea, my two wonderful support staff who put this whole thing together, made it such an enjoyable and pleasant time. So thank you very much, and thank you for your attendance, and we can now all enjoy lunch. Thank you.